Hey everyone, my guest today is Professor Hans Meij. He's the head of international affairs at Amsterdam UMC, and he's also the inaugural director of the Center for Healthy Longevity at the National University of Singapore. There, he's working closely with Andrea Meyer and many other longevity experts on helping Singapore to deal with their demographic shift of their population getting older. We talk today because he's going to come to Berlin to speak at Zella City. Zella City is a longevity pop-up city that I am part of. Longevity pop-up city means that for 6 weeks, longevity investors, founders, entrepreneurs, and engineers, like all people that want to contribute towards our fight against aging, come together and live at the same place for 6 weeks. On the weekends, we always have summits, and on one of those summits, he's going to speak. But enough about Zella City. Professor Meij is also going to introduce himself. So now, enjoy my conversation with Professor Hans Meij. Welcome, Professor Meij.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. How about we start by you telling us a short, 3-minute summary of who you are and what you're currently working on.
Okay, I'm Hans Meij. I'm a Dutch guy from Amsterdam originally. I entered the field of medicine as trained as a nurse, and then I started medical school, and I ended up as a medical anthropologist. And I was fascinated by the process of aging, and therefore I went to Africa, did DNA research in a special tribe in the northeast of Ghana, and that started my whole career in aging and in longevity. And meanwhile, I qualified as an executive for healthcare organizations, which I did over the last 25 years. And in 2022, Andrea Meyer and I started the Academy for Healthy Longevity in Singapore. I've been working in many countries, especially in Southeast Asia, Australia, but also in the US, in Ghana, and in Europe.
Okay, nice. In your opinion, what person discovery or idea in the longevity space gets less attention than it actually deserves?
In my opinion, the most important part in healthy longevity is the fact that people should do something about it themselves. Self-awareness and action is number one. We in medicine, we can do whatever we want, and we can provide a lot of healthcare. But if you don't keep your body and your mind sound, and then we can do whatever we want, but it doesn't help a lot. Self-awareness and education is, in my opinion, the most important part in longevity at this moment in time.
Where would you advise people that want to do that to go to get this education that you're talking about?
Of course, they have to come to our academy in Singapore, but it's education is everywhere. What we try to do in Singapore is to get a more elevated and academic approach to the education of the field of longevity. But for everybody, education is around the corner. There's so much information. There's so much you can do. Not everything is good, and not all the advices are good, but we are now at a research level where we can provide evidence for longevity. That should be included in the normal education, and that's not education in my academy per se. That's good for academics and for medics and for healthcare professionals, but for normal people on the street who live with their own environment and their own body day by day, education should be everywhere. In high school, it should be educated at junior level. It's about an integrated approach and an integrated awareness in life. And we teach people how to ride a bike. We teach them how to ride a car. We don't teach them how to maintain their body well.
I do agree. But yes, there's also a lot of information. Sometimes even I feel like it's too much.
Yeah, but that's part of life. For instance, if you have a disease, for instance, cancer, you can go online and you have at least 10 million articles about your disease. And what do you choose? That's always the interaction between a medical specialist or a medical professional and yourself. That should be the same in longevity. Longevity is something that is easy to do, but not easy to understand.
Yes. What is one counterintuitive thing about aging and longevity that you learned in your time working in the field?
Yes, that was when I was working in the field in Ghana. We were expecting that there should be women with an incredible high longevity, not a high fecundity, a number of reproduction, a number of children, since there's a trade-off between investment in fecundity and in longevity. And we found out that you can only reproduce above a certain amount of children if you have some protection. So protection is part of reproduction and part of longevity. So longevity and reproduction go hand in hand. And that's very interesting, since we didn't expect that effect, that balanced effect, should occur in Africa. But we found that high reproduction can only occur when there is enough protection from outside. So longevity is and fecundity are in balance with each other and help each other in maintaining the species.
Protection from outside, you mean like protection within the tribe, like by the people around, or?
No, it's the early protection that we have in the epidemiological transition in Western world. That is sewage system, that is piped water, that is clean water, that is clean food. Okay. That's early protection, and if you don't have that early protection, then your fecundity is absolutely under threat. Since if you are in DNA makeup for a high reproduction, then you are extremely vulnerable as well.
Ah, okay. Yeah, probably also, because of death during birth and okay. Do you think that with our progress in the longevity field, there will at some point be a block, like a limit, how much we can increase human health and lifespan?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and that's a pending question for the last 40 years. But until now, I don't see limitations. I see that it's very difficult to reach that age of 115 or 120. But even now, we see that life span is still increasing. I'm not very interested in it, to be honest. I'm interested in health span. Health span is not increasing, but is decreasing. That's why longevity approach should look at health span and not at lifespan. Life expectancy at birth is interesting. It's still going up, except for some countries, for instance, the United States, where it's going down due to the system there and due to the situation. That is absolutely alarming. It should be alarming if you are a policymaker in the US. But I'm not from the US. I'm not working in the US. But I see that the life expectancy at birth is declining there. But for the rest, if you look at the rest of the world, it's still increasing. If you have an increasing lifespan, it doesn't necessarily say that people are happier and better off. People are only better and better off and happier if they are in a healthy condition. And so health span is of my interest. And if that has inside that people are getting older and older, that's fine. As long as you're healthy.
Yeah. So you say there's no block, and you mentioned like 120, 150. Like, do you think at some point it's might be even possible for people to live for like 200 years with a healthy health span? Like
when
principle.
I was young, people thought that 100 was absurd.
Okay.
That's not the case anymore. And you see, it's just a matter of time. And it's not a matter of the limitations of the body. It might be, but we haven't seen that yet. It might be that the body has a limited supply of energy. And that's quite likely. But it's still increasing. So we don't know where it ends. But it's the same discussion as marathon walkers or runners. They decrease the number of hours they need for the whole marathon. It's still reducing. There's still a few seconds off every time. And how long can you prolong that? We don't know, but it's still going on. And so in my youth, worldwide winner was about 2.5 or 3 hours, and now it's under 2 hours.
Yes.
Will it ever go on? No, of course not. You cannot walk 42 kilometers in 1 minute or 30 seconds. So there is a limit. But what is the limit? We don't know what the limit is. That's the same with life expectancy. Life expectancy is still increasing, as I said. We don't know what the limit is. Am I interested in the limit? Well, for academic discussions, yes. For life as such, no. And I'm definitely not looking for eternity, life forever. If you live forever, there's no reason for doing something tomorrow.
I'm not sure if I fully agree with that, but
Oh, really? Well, if you and I are living forever, why should
yes,
we have a coffee tomorrow? Since I
because
can
why
have a
not?
coffee in 10 years' time or in 100 years' time.
Yes, yes, that's true. But like, we have to do something tomorrow, so why not have a coffee together?
Why should I do something tomorrow? I can do it the day after. Or I can do it in 500 years.
Yeah, but you will do something tomorrow. Like, you
Why?
just have
Why
to
should I?
choose.
What
But
is
you
what
ha-
is?
is it possible to do nothing?
Oh yes, I can just lay down here and do nothing. Why not? And especially since there is no pressure. The pressure in my life is that I know that in a certain amount of years I will die. So if I want to do something or meet someone, I have to do it as soon as I can or in limited lifespan of time span. So if we are living forever, you and I will meet you in 50 years or 500. Doesn't
Or
matter.
500?
Or the
I mean,
500, yeah.
it's okay, but you always decide. Like, if you lay down, you could also lay down in 50 years and go for a
Yes.
coffee now.
Yep. 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 Yeah. So it's meaningless. Life is only meaningful if there is a limitation. Life without limitation is absolutely useless.
I'm not sure. Maybe we can discuss this when you're at Zeller City.
I'm more than happy to do it, and but there are a few good books written about it by novelists and philosophists like Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir. The name of the book is, I know it in French. Everybody will die. I don't know what the exact English translation is, but in French it's Tous sont mortels. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Everybody will die. And it's a book about a world where there's one person who is immortal. And the rest of the world is just like you and I. And in the end, that person tries to kill himself since life becomes useless if you are immortal.
Because everything repeats and repeats. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it should be impossible to die. Like, I think that is actually like it's
It's
like
nonsense.
it's very bad. Like, if you would not be able to die, I would not choose this probably. But
No.
having the opportunity to live in good health for 500 years or 10,000, why not? if this were
Okay.
possible.
Okay.
But
Yeah, well, that's what Aubrey de Grey always is
Yes.
saying, that the first person who will live 1,000 years is already here on Earth. Only we don't know who that is.
What do you think about that?
In theory, he is right. I think in practice, he's a little bit too early with his predictions. It takes another 10,000 years, but okay.
Okay.
But in theory,
understand.
he's right.
Well, in theory, that the person is already born, or that it is possible.
It's possible.
Okay.
But we don't
Yes.
know. We have to wait until that person is staying another 1,000 years or 10,000 years. We don't know.
Yes. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
What, in your opinion, are the biggest bottlenecks in the longevity field that definitely need to be solved so we can make meaningful progress towards increasing human health span?
Evidence. We need much more clinical evidence for the cures or the treatments that people supply at the moment. There are so many people who just do something or offer something that is not clinically proven. That is one of the biggest issues. And we need to change healthcare. Healthcare is at the moment in repair care. So you go to a doctor if you have already a disease. You are already diseased. We have to change that and do early interventions and do prevention. Prevention and early interventions are absolutely the next phase in healthcare. Since you can easily cure infectious diseases. You have a disease, you go to the doctor, you cure it, and it's done. Chronic diseases, like aging diseases, are not easy to cure, they're easy to prevent. So that's why we should go to prevention and to early interventions. Early interventions are way cheaper than late interventions.
Yes.
And you can see it coming. You can see the problem coming.
So
And so
a lot
if you
of
just don't wait until the threshold is there, you reach the threshold, you just wait until you wait until you're too late, then you enter the repair care, and that's really costly.
Yes.
If you can prevent it, why wouldn't you?
I agree.
Well, and the biggest problem, there's only one big problem in the world. If we can solve that problem, then healthcare will be very cheap, and we can live much longer. That is smoking.
Okay.
The only big problem we have in the world, smoking. 40% of all healthcare costs are coming from people who and from smoke and smoke related problems. So if we have a worldwide ban on smoking, then my hospital here, I'm sitting now in my hospital, would be half empty. The situation here is that it's not decreasing anymore. As I said, in young adults, it's increasing. The smoking disease are already, the problems that were caused by smoking were already 10, 20 years ago on increase, and it's still increasing. Since the population that is now affected by it is much older. They are 60 plus. And that's where the problems come.
Yeah, I think probably also, now that I'm thinking about it, you're right, because if you only count cigarette smoking, it's probably decreasing, but through like vapes and all this.
It's everything connected with smoking.
Okay.
And if we can eliminate smoking, then we have eliminate an incredible amount of disease: cancer, pulmonary disease, cardio disease. Well, you realize that for a pulmonary disease department, 80% is about smoking and smoking-related disease. And then cardio must be 50%. It's incredible amounts. And not only for people who are now smoking, but people who were smoking 20 years ago.
What do you think is the role of pop-up cities, like, for example, Zella City, towards our progress in solving aging?
I think that we need more pop-up initiatives. So that's what I like about it. Local awareness and awareness from individuals is where the whole longevity field started. It was people who would just say, well, hey, I have enough money, but I don't have enough time. How can I prolong my healthy living? That's where it started. And by doctors and nurses who realized that the healthcare that we are providing now is not the healthcare that we should provide. That we should do something else. And since we are on a dead end row, we were only investing in very, very expensive new medications and very expensive treatments, since we don't have any other solution than do the most ridiculous things for a ridiculous price. And that's why we want to reverse it and do something else. Popping up with new ideas is always good. And not all ideas are successful for another 40 or 50 years, or will be definitely introduced in normal practice in medicine or whatever you do. But popping up with new ideas is always good. You need initiative, you need new thinkers, you need people who said, hey, let's do something crazy.
Yes.
And healthcare in itself is quite conservative, since from each and every copy of individuals, we only have one. We only have one Elias, we only have one Hans, we only have one whoever. So we're trying to preserve and conserve that individual and that individual copy as good as we can. And that makes it in itself not really eager to change, since we don't know what we're doing if we change. But we need change. We need to do something else. So we need daredevils who say, well, hey, let's do it differently. Doctors, healthcare professionals, and individuals who say, no, I want to make sure that I am in the best health and healthcare position that I can be. And that's good. That's why you need new thinkers. That's why you need to innovate, even in healthcare. And sometimes you have to say goodbye to the things that you always did and try something new, or accept that the things we did were not always as good as we thought it was. And that's what healthcare should learn, since healthcare is very good in keeping the old habits alive. Although we know that we should change, but they don't do it necessarily wholeheartedly.
How do you think could we bring up this change that you're talking about in a big scale, like that it is like within multiple institutions?
Oh, that only goes gradually. There won't be a big bang. Big bangs usually only occur when there is a crisis or an urgent need, like COVID. COVID caused change. HIV/AIDS caused big changes, but that are crisis changes. There is, in my opinion, not a healthcare crisis. We need to change. Change will not go very fast since healthcare in itself is quite conservative. So we have to build a network. That's what we do in the academy in Singapore. We build a worldwide network. But that has to grow. And you can increase, but you cannot expect the world to change overnight. Especially not since we are changing the healthcare system, and that is affecting the way we do healthcare now. And it's changing individuals and the individual practice and the individual income. So it's you have all kind of indications that it will go slow, or it will, if you want to speed it up, it will not sustain.
Can you maybe elaborate on this network that you're building in Singapore with the academy?
Yes, we building up different networks. We start with a network of young professionals. We bring them together every year to Singapore in an incubator boot camp session style. We bring them together from every part of the world. There are always 40 or 50 each year. They are together for 2 weeks in a very intensive course where we bring all the expertise to them. They do research together, and then they go out in the world again. They go back to where they were. But they are part of the alumni network. And every year, the new alumni stack up in the total amount of numbers and then in the network. So that network becomes more and more complex and integrated. It's very active. That's number one. Then we have intensive courses, and the intensive courses are for the midterm professionals, medical and non-medical. We bring them together 100 each year, and we speed that up now. We're going to speed it up now. We do 200 a year, and they are the next network, next layer of network. And what we see is that people go home and start their own longevity hub. Young people do that, older people do that. And so then you have a sort of incubator alumni network where people from all ages come together and start doing something in their own environment. There is now a longevity group in Sulawesi, Indonesia. There are people working here in a network group, and they influence each other, and they are exchanging ideas and new things that they find, or they participate in research. Well, that's the way we do it. We are now going to train a lot of physicians in Singapore, and Singapore has a special approach towards longevity. And that's how we are contributing to the longevity network. We don't have to change the whole world at once. We want to change the world, but we do it gradually.
Yes.
Because I think that is more stable.
For the young people that you take in the network, are those like young PhDs or who can apply for this?
Anyone who is enthusiastic, but they have to have a master or are in the end of their master, starting a PhD or having a PhD, but not more than 1 or 2 years work experience. So they are in the early stage of their career, or they are just in the brink of their career doing a master or a PhD trajectory. That's the group that we bring together. So it's a young group. It's, as I said, it's intense. They work day and night, and they are staying together in the campus together with all the senior staff. So we are staying there as well. And that makes it extremely intense and interconnected. So at the end, after 2 weeks, I can assure you that they're all friends.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of what we have here.
And what we do, we not only doing the classical education, but we do sports, we do yoga, we do field visits, we do field research, and that makes it a complex and integrated program, and very, very nice to have.
Yeah.
Apart from the international night where everybody is singing and dancing and bringing food from their own country. Which is one of my favorites.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. So, what do you use to stay up to date in the longevity field?
I'm married to one of the best longevity specialists in the world. So just talking to her is always a joy. And reading and having your literature up to date. That's one. Second is working with young people, and they always bring new ideas, and working with them on articles and publications. That's always a joy. Well, that's what I do. And what I do personally, I have a dog, which is the best thing to prevent aging. And I can only tell you, take a dog, and not a small one, but take a big dog. Why? Because he has to walk, or she has to walk every day at least 1.5 hours. So I have to go out. I cannot stay in, since he will, in this case, is Fritz, my dog, will always tell me when I have to go out. And it's not only that I'm walking the dog, but having a dog is very socialized, since everybody is talking to you on the street. Especially if you have a beautiful dog. I have a standard poodle. It's a character, and everybody always comes to me and said, "Oh, it's a nice dog," and you have a nice conversation. And now and then you meet friends forever. So it's good for your health. It's good for your social life, and social life is very important for health and longevity. And the other one is look at your body. What is happening? I'm wearing permanent blood pressure band. Now and then I do a glucose measurement for a week, not for always. That's what you take care of your sleep pattern. That are the things that are making life better. And I experience that those medical information that you can collect yourself is really changing your life. It changed my life.
You said that you wear a permanent blood pressure band.
Yep.
Is the technology always already so far that this is actually working in a good way?
Yep. Why shouldn't it work? I'm using an instrument. It's called Actia. It's not released for Holland, but I got it from at a conference, and it's released in Germany and some other countries, but not in Holland yet. I measured it against my normal blood pressure band. It worked perfectly. Mm-hmm. And the most interesting thing is that it needs calibration every month.
Okay.
So every month you have to recalibrate the whole thing, which takes about 5 minutes, not very complex. And here in our hospital, the blood pressure equipment is usually tested and calibrated only once a year. Mm. So what is more reliable? The one that I'm wearing that is calibrated every month, or the ones that we use here in the hospital that's calibrated every year? Well, that's number one. Second is, if patients come to a hospital for a blood pressure measurement, how reliable is that? Since it's one out of
the white coat syndrome,
And of course, we have a doctor syndrome. I'm always afraid that the doctor finds something, so my blood pressure is already up. Especially since I was waiting half an hour before I was in, and the doctor was late again. So my blood pressure is absolutely unreliable. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't measure things only once. You should measure things over and over again. And not only when I'm in a doctor's office. I should measure it during night and day, and do it in a setting where I feel relaxed. So that's much more reliable, and see what is happening in my life. Mm-hmm. When is my blood pressure up and when is it down? What is the pattern? Yeah. Same with glucose levels. I measured my glucose levels over 14 days, and I know exactly where my spikes are, so I can avoid the spikes. Mm-hmm. My spikes are in pizza. Pity, since I like pizza, but I reduce my intake of pizza since I know that I'm really spiker on pizza. That changed my life. Yeah. But only because I measured it. Mm. And if I go to my GP and he measures my blood pressure and he measures my glucose level, he said, okay, it's fine. But he doesn't know where the spikes are.
Yes. I see. But I know those 24-hour blood pressure measurements that inflate, but you say you have something that you permanently wear.
Horrible. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not here now since it's now on the charger. But it's a very small band. It's like this size. It's smaller than a watch. It's very light, and you can just wear it on your pulse, and it measures through the skin. No inflatable cuffs or all that kind of horrible things. And it measures about 3 or 4 times each hour, and it gives a nice pattern over day and overnight. And so you can see what your pattern is during a day. You can see what your pattern is during the week or during a month or whatever you want.
Okay, I'll look into that.
The same with glucose levels. All the equipment is there, and we're not using it. It's all there. And the only thing I always hear is unreliable. Why? Why should it be unreliable?
I don't know. I also,
Nonsense.
yes, I also just heard that, but I will look into
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Like
That's what you always say, and that's the same. What my internal medicine specialist asked me: How reliable is it? I said, "How reliable is your equipment?" Yeah, it's professional equipment. Yes, that's fine. How often is it calibrated? He doesn't know. Can you see on the machine what the last time was? No, I don't know. Okay, I know it in my machine, since my machine is not working if I don't do it every month.
yes,
Hey,
yeah, but I mean, some things are clinically like, I don't know, really validated, and like everybody,
yep.
I could make a blood pressure cuff and say like, yeah, it's measuring your blood pressure. You have to calibrate it every day, and that doesn't make
Yeah.
it accurate.
That depends. You can. What is the counterfailing proof that you have that another equipment is
Yeah. Okay. I don't.
exact and
I
is
don't.
correct? What is correct? So you can. What I did is just test it against the other blood pressure measurement
I
I
see.
have. Okay,
I see.
then you could argue that they both are wrong. Not very likely.
Yeah. If they're wrong in the same way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's quite unlikely. So yes, the equipment is there. I really trust it, and people should trust it more. Since it's not about a one-off measurement, it's about more continuous measurements. And I'm not wearing all the equipment every day. For instance, glucose level measurement, I do it 14 days and then I don't do it for another year since you don't need it. And I know that my blood pressure, my glucose level is quite low and fine. I know where my spikes are. Okay, I can live for another year. But it's better than just doing one measurement at a GP office where it's questionable what that does say. It doesn't say too much.
Yeah.
So that's
No.
why I do it.
Yeah.
And it helps and it changed life. And the same is with people who are training and measuring their heart rate. Well, it's about testing your system.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That I
And
actually do.
I don't worry too much about the trustworthiness of the equipment, since on average I trust them.
Okay. Okay. Who do you look up to in the longevity field? Like, whose work do you think is worth to like give a highlight to?
Guido Krömer from France, Institute Pompidou, near Barzilai. I think he is doing excellent work. Andrea Meyer, well, that are a few names.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that are people who are really setting the scores and doing new things and are not afraid to just speak up. And of course, Guido Krömer is incredible. He invented the hallmarks of aging, wrote an article that has been cited at least 100,000 times. And I heard him speaking at our intensive course in February last year. And I was amazed by the quality of his work.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give a young, driven individual that is starting out in the longevity field and that really wants to help the field to progress?
That's a good question. What would I advise them? I would advise to find the best tutor you can find and go after the best tutor. Usually, those people who are quite famous are more than willing to guide you on your journey and to start a PhD trajectory or whatever you can, and just go after the person that really inspires you. And try to get into his or her field of attention. That's the best advice I can give you, since you shouldn't do it alone. You shouldn't start alone. There's so much knowledge, and there's so many people who are absolutely eager to help young people. And I can give you a whole list of people who are absolutely begging us to lecture at the incubator or at the intensive course. They are willing to share their knowledge, and don't hesitate. Just do it. I like people who just pop up and say, "Hey, can I speak to you for half an hour?" Yes, of course you can. And in the incubator, we always have mentor sessions, and in mentor sessions, we invite all kind of people from everywhere in Singapore to join us to just speak with young people. And they can, and that's the dean, that are entrepreneurs, that are people from government. We have more than enough people who are willing to mentor young people. So those young guys and girls are absolutely good off in the incubator, that they can speak to anyone they are thinking of. That can be the famous professors, that can be deans and entrepreneurs, it can be anyone. And that is not limited to the incubator. I think that throughout the world there are people who are willing to help. And usually young people are too shy or afraid to ask. And just do it. And there's always something coming out of it. Sometimes it's the advice, well, hey, go to the left or go to the right, or hey, look at this article or look at that person. And sometimes it's someone who said, well, hey, why don't you join my team? Don't be afraid. Just go for it. There's always someone answering. And I don't know of any colleague who says, no, I'm not interested, or no, go somewhere else. No. If you approach someone in this field, 95% of the time you are in, and you, at least you have half an hour or an hour to speak to someone. And that's always a joy. Yeah. And you can learn from it.
What would you want your colleagues, or like the longevity field people, academics that are already working in this field, like where do you think is a point of improvement?
I think, well, it's an interesting question, and I have an answer, I'm afraid. My advice to colleagues would be broaden up the field. I think that the field is very close knit in the network. It's a very close knit network, but they are staying together a little bit too much. I want to broaden it up and bring more people into the field. So at each and every conference, you see the same people, which is very nice since they're really good colleagues. But we should broaden up the whole field. And I think that's the next step in longevity.
Is there any last thing you want to share with the people listening?
I think that, and that's now I'm preaching for my own church. I think that education is under valued element of the longevity field. And if we want to broaden up, as I said, we need to broaden up. We need to bring more people into the field. We need to educate people more, and we need to spread the word more. And that's why we in the academy in Singapore are enthusiastic about the whole idea of incubators, of intensive courses, etc., etc. But the field has to embrace it and bring it in a broader perspective by bringing in more people, but also starting new educational initiatives. Since there are a lot of people who need to know a little bit more about longevity and the way that healthcare should progress in the near future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Elias.
So this was my conversation with Professor Hans Meij. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Here's a link to a video where I interview Professor Andrea Meyer, which is working closely together with Professor Meij in Singapore. Also in the description, you can find a bunch of other links, including links to Zella City, if you also want to come to Berlin and join us, and links to all the other stuff mentioned. Bye bye.